Thank you.
Good morning to the members of the regulator, to the entire team at NESA. Also, good morning to the members of the public that have joined us to this meeting, which is the meeting of the ELS meeting number 264 of the 5th of May, 2026. Before we go any further, I would like to take this opportunity to introduce myself as Willie Majola. I am a full-time member of the regulator and also responsible for electricity. But I'd also like to use the opportunity to invite the other members who are present to introduce themselves, starting with the chair, Mr. Bukula.
Thank you, Mr. Majola. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bukula. And then Madam Maseti.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, members, and good morning to the members of the public.
Thank you, Madam Maseti. And then Advocate Sitole.
Good morning, Chairperson, and good morning to everyone who has joined us for this meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Advocate Sitole. And then Mr. Mkize.
Good morning, Chairperson, fellow subcommittee members, management and staff of NERSA, as well as the members of the public that are following us through the various live streaming platforms. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mkize. And then Madam Simane.
Morning, Chair, and morning to our Chairperson and Mr. Bukula, our members, our NESA colleagues, and to the members of the public. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Simane. We'll now move to item number 3, item number 3, the adoption of the agenda, which has been sent. Can I see by show of hands from the members if they support the agenda? Thank you, Mr. Mkize. Thank you, Mr. Bukula. Myself also support, and Madam Simane and Madam Maseti. Thank you. On that note, the agenda is adopted. Then the next item is the declaration of interest. So the members are going to get an opportunity to send electronic declarations. But at the same time, if there are any declarations that members would like to make verbally in the meeting, they are open to do so now. I do not see any verbal declarations. As I said, the electronic ones are going to be sent separately. And then we're now going to go to the first item, which is item number 5, the temporary exemption of no port wind farm. I'm going to call upon Mr. Matebula and his team to come to give the submission. Thank you, Mr. Matebula.
Chairperson, good morning, and I hope I'm audible this morning, and good morning to the members of the subcommittee, my colleagues at NESA, as well as those who are following us on live stream. This item, Chair, it's about the temporary exemption for Newport wind farm from complying with clause 9.4 of the Grid Connection Code for renewable power plants. Chair, this particular request was brought before the Grid Code Committee on the 12th of March 2026. The committee deliberated on the matter and believed that the matter can serve at this committee for approval. But Chair, let me allow Petile Maseko just to talk to the specifics within this on this application before we can consider the recommendations, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Matebula. Greetings to you, Chairperson, members of the regulator, fellow colleagues, and members of the public. Chairperson, this matter is duly delegated to the subcommittee in terms of clause number 2.1 of the electricity delegation matrix to approve applications from the electricity supply industry requiring exemptions to the South African Grid Code. This matter was duly considered by the GCAC on 12 March 2026 and therefore recommended to the energy regulator for approval. The summary of the non-compliant aspects of this application, as well as the reasons for the non-compliance and the remedial actions are tabulated in Table 3 of the submission. Chairperson, I would like to highlight the following salient points. No Port Wind Farm remains non-compliant with the grid code harmonic limits. From the test that was done on the 16th of February, showed improvement on the 11, 13, 17, and 19 harmonics. However, the 23rd and 25th harmonics continued to drive the non-compliance. As the remedial action, the RPP and its contractors are actively tuning and testing the existing active harmonic filter to improve compensation of the 23rd and 25th harmonic orders specifically. It is therefore recommended, Chairperson, that the Electricity Subcommittee approves the temporary exemption as outlined in Table 4 of this submission, as well as approve the enhanced condition to this temporary exemption that reads as follows. The first one, the RPP generator must demonstrate through testing or otherwise to the satisfaction of the system operator and the network service provider, the RPP generator's current capability in relation to the exempted code requirements and provide assurance that this capability will be maintained for the duration of the exemption period. Secondly, should the RPP generator's non-compliance with the code requirements necessitate the system operator or the network service provider to curtail or disconnect the RPP generator, no deemed energy payment shall be claimed for the output that was curtailed or disconnected. Lastly, Chairperson, the RPP generator must submit quarterly reports to NERSA and the Grid Code Secretariat on the progress made to achieve compliance. Reports shall be submitted to NERSA Grid Code team at nersa.org.za and gcm@eskom.co.za. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And now I'm going to give opportunity to the members if they've got any questions or points of enhancement. Over to you, members. I see Mr. Mkize.
Thanks, Chairperson, and thanks to the presenter. From my side, I do support the recommendation, but just one thing on 5.1. You note that the previous exemption expired on the 28th of February. And then the new date that is requested for the extension is 31st of August 2026. Just from a point of view of proper compliance, monitoring, and enforcement in general as a regulator, I think that we need to look at this matter from a point of view of not leaving gaps where there are non-compliance persist, but there is no waiver or exemption that is officially granted. And I looked that the next test date is like the 31st of August, and the new date is still the 31st of August. And I'm looking at it from the point of view that if we've got a test date, why can't we have it, the expiry date being maybe 2 months thereafter or 3 months thereafter, to enable a situation where if there is still some kind of non-compliance, they would apply but still have an exemption in place, just to make sure that we do things in a proper manner. That's just my only concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mkize. Can I now ask the team to respond?
Proceed, Mr. Shozi.
Mr. Shozi?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning to you. Good morning to the members. Yes, we do take note concerns from Mr. Mkize, and in fact, we had a discussion with the Great Court Secretariat on the same matter to say we need to enhance our governance, Great Court governance, and be specific in terms of time. When will the RPP or the licensee should approach the GCAC in terms of asking for an extension or a new exemption? Because currently the RPP or licensee, they will, on the eve of the expiry of the existing exemption, they will then approach the GCAC for an extension, only to find that because of the time lag between the meeting of the GCAC and the meeting of the regulator, there would be that gap in between. So we are engaging with the Secretariat to probably put timelines as to when the licensee should be approaching the GCAC before the exemption lapses. On the issue of the 31st, probably if members allow, we will enhance it. It's because that's supposed to be the expiry, the date for a new extension that is required. It's not actually the test date. If the test date will come before that date, but we will craft it such that it reflects what we meant to reflect on the submission. But we note your guidance, Mr. Mkize. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Shozi. Just to check with Mr. Mkize whether he's answered.
I'm covered. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mkize. So on that note, then we got to move to the to vote for the recommendation, which is in 14.2. I'm not going to repeat it because it's already been read during the submission. So if I can see by show of hands, members, if they are in support, it's Mr. Mkize, Madam Maseti, Madam Simane, Mr. Pokula, and myself. Thank you. We will now move to the next agenda item number 6, which is a temporary exemption for Kuha. Mr. Matebula and team, once again.
Thanks, Chairperson. This particular application for an exemption, Chair, was also considered at the same meeting of the 12th of March by the Grid Code Advisory Committee. And Chair, based on the motivation that was brought by the applicant and the facts that were considered at the time, the committee felt that this matter is sufficient to can be brought before the regulator for consideration. And I will ask therefore that Mr. Machinchi just talks to some specifics with regard to these applications before we consider the recommendations, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Matebula. Greetings to you, Chairperson, members of the regulator, fellow colleagues, and members of the public. Chairperson, this matter is duly dedicated to this subcommittee in terms of clause number 2.1 of the electricity delegation matrix to approve applications from the electricity supply industry requiring exemptions to the South African Grid Code. This matter was duly considered by the GCAC on 12 March 2026 and therefore recommended to the energy regulator for approval. The summary of the non-compliant aspect of the application, as well as the reason for the non-compliance and the remedial action, are tabulated in Table 3 of this submission. Chairperson, I would like to highlight the following salient point. Kuga Wind Farm remains non-compliant due to an issue with the power over frequency response test, which has not yet met the required standard. The RPP experienced delays and was only able to submit the report to the RETEC in January 2026. As the remedial action, the RPP has conducted multiple retests and to address the power over frequency response test deficiency, with corrective actions currently underway. It is therefore recommended, Chairperson, that the Electricity Subcommittee approves the temporary exemption as outlined in Table 4 of the subcommittee submission, as well as approve the enhanced conditions to this temporary exemption that reads as follows. The first one, the RPP generator must demonstrate through testing or otherwise to the satisfaction of the system operator and the network service provider, the RPP generator's current capability in relation to the exempted code requirements and provide assurance that the capability will be maintained for the duration of the exempted duration. Secondly, should the RPP generator's non-compliance with the code requirement necessitate the system operator or the network service provider to curtail or disconnect the RPP generator, no deemed energy payment shall be claimed for the output that was curtailed or disconnected. Lastly, Chairperson, the RPP generator must submit quarterly reports to NERSA and the Grid Code Secretariat on progress made to achieve compliance. Reports shall be submitted to NERSA Grid Code team at nersa.org.za and gcm@eskom.co.za. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mashinji. I'm now going to ask the members if they've got any questions or points of enhancements. Thank you, members. I do not see any hands, and therefore may I ask the members to show by raising their hands if they are in support. The recommendation has already been read in sorry, apologies, I see Madam Maseti.
Chairperson, you are already reading the resolution, so I'm raising my hand for that.
Oh, sorry. So can you continue to raise our hands in support? So Mrs. Maseti, then Madam Simane, Mr. Bukula, Advocate Sitole, and myself, and Mr. Mkize. Thank you very much.
The previous comment applies, Chair.
Yes, the previous comments, it does apply in terms of enhancing the resolutions to look into the period between the expiry date and the actual tests that are going to be done.
Chair, you muted yourself.
So thank you. So on that note, we're now going to move to item number 7, the approval of the ESCOM generator power purchase agreements. And Mr. Machepula, once again, thank you.
Yeah, Chairperson, thanks again for the opportunity. Chair, we bringing before the subcommittee 2 consultation papers, which we wish to publish them for consultation with stakeholders for their inputs. These 2 documents, Chair, one deals with the issues of vesting contracts, and it seeks to set a framework in which the vesting contract will be approved by the regulator. Chair, moving into the wholesale market, the CPA within the market operator will be expected to apply to the regulator for vesting contracts approval. And Chair, this document serves as a guide in terms of how that process will unfold and what the vesting contracts will entail. and some of the things that obviously the regulator will be considering in approving these contracts. And this will be the contracts between the market operator or through the CPA, as well as the generation business of Eskom, to be specific. So, Chair, we are here today to request that we publish these consultation papers. We solicit stakeholder comments as required by the process. And Chair, based on the comments received, we can then proceed to bring the matter back to the committee for approval and finalization, to have the framework in place to guide the stakeholders, which in this case is the applicants, as well as ourselves, as we engage and approve these contracts, so that we can have a guiding documents on how this is handled. So, Chair, this is together with the wholesale pricing methodology, and I will ask, Chair, that Mr. Ntakeni deals with some of the specifics with regard to the legal standing on why do we need to do this as the regulator, with regard to the Act, the provisions of the Act, as well as some of the key matters that are contained in these consultation papers. So I would like to therefore hand to Mr. Ntakeni, and I think with his colleague Thabo will take the members through some of the pertinent matters, and Chair, then we can consider the recommendations to have these consultation papers published in line with the timelines that are indicated on Table 1, so that, Chair, we can have these instruments readily available and ready for the processing of these vesting contracts and for the launch of the South African wholesale electricity market. Thank you, Chair. I will hand over to Mr. Ntakeni. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Matebula, and good morning to the chairperson and the members of the public. So just to give the background and the context, together with the legal basis, as Mr. Matebula has guided, is that the amendment of the ERA, which is Electricity Regulation Act, and we are giving that under Section 4 of the submission. The amendment of the Electricity Regulation Act has introduced structural reforms, most notably the unbundling of the industry. And these reforms, Chairperson, has necessitated the need to revise the existing regulatory frameworks that we have, so that they are aligned with the changes in the legislation. And the revised framework also aimed to, or intend to be more focused on consumer, and also to enable sustainable and efficient investment on the supply side. And then in terms of the legal consideration under Section 5, we are making reference to Section 3 of the ERA, which indicate that NERSA is the custodian and the enforcer of the regulatory framework. And also Section 4, which empowers the regulator to set and approve the prices and the tariff in the manner prescribed by the rules. And on the motivation, Chairperson, as Mr. Matebula has indicated, we are saying because of the changes that has been brought about by the amendment of the ERA and the reforms that are in the electricity supply industry, it is necessary for NERSA to develop the regulatory instruments, which are the vesting contracts and the wholesale tariff methodology. I will then request, before I come back, Chairperson, Mr. Chabalala, to deal with the vesting contracts part. Then I will deal with the wholesale price methodology. Mr. Chabalala, if you can come in.
Thank you, Mr. Ntakeni. Good morning, Chairperson, members, colleagues, and the members of the public joining in on this call. As the EM has already indicated, the purpose of this submission is to request the Electricity Subcommittee to approve the consultation paper on the ESCOM's generator power purchase agreement and vesting contracts, which is attached as Annexure A, while Annexure B is requesting the approval of the consultation paper on the wholesale price methodology. In essence, where this is all coming from, the Electricity Regulation Act has been amended, introducing significant structural reforms within the South African electricity industry. Most notably in these reforms would be the unbundling. And now, to support these structural reforms, the current regulatory pricing methodologies require review to ensure that the underlying frameworks actually then align with the current industry developments. These revisions actually reflect a transition from a vertically integrated industry to a functionally separated and increasingly competitive market environment. As a result, NERSA is mandated to oversee and facilitate this transition from the vertically integrated supply industry towards more of a competitive wholesale electricity market in South Africa. So this transition, Chairperson, requires a coordinated development, approval and implementation of a suite of regulatory and market instruments that collectively will then form the South African wholesale electricity market, or SAWEM, in short. There are a lot of instruments that require development, some which would include the market operator license, which would then enable the operation of the wholesale market. Just to mention a few, the market code and the trading platform, which would then govern the market, participation and price formation, which brings us to why we are here today in terms of the transitional arrangements, such as your power purchase agreements and vesting contracts, which would then ensure that the system stability and would mitigate market power during the early stages of reform. This particular submission, Annexure A, focuses on the approval of the consultation paper on the generation power purchase agreement and vesting contracts for both generation and distribution. Particularly, this is stemming from Section 35B of the Electricity Regulation Act as amended, which provides that the Central Purchasing Agency must do two things in the main. Number one, it must conclude power purchase agreements with generators to secure capacity and auxiliary services required for the reliable operation of the power system. And then secondly, it must conclude vesting contracts and other transitional arrangements necessary to facilitate the development of this competitive electricity market. So in a nutshell, Chairperson, how Section 35B translate, it actually just says that the CPA is required to conclude these power purchase agreements with ESCOM generators to cover transparent and efficient recovery of capacity and auxiliary service costs in the main. And then secondly, to conclude those vesting contracts with ESCOM generators and distribution licensees as a transitional mechanism to manage power, stabilize revenues, and also to then support gradual emergence of competitive price formation. In the main, these instruments would then need to be approved by NERSA. In a nutshell, Chairperson, the power purchase agreement framework and vesting contracts is built on four core elements. Firstly, it covers the capacity cost contracting. Secondly, it covers the auxiliary services contracting. Thirdly, it proposes the determination of the offer price that ESCOM generators should use to bid into the market. And this, Chairperson, is based on short-run marginal cost. And then fourthly, this consultation paper then proposes the vesting contracts framework, which is meant to be a hedging mechanism to manage the difference between the market prices and the strike price during the transition period. This consultation paper, Chairperson, distinguishes particularly between the offer price for bidding purposes and the strike price, which is meant to recover ESCOM approved revenues during the current approved MYPD6 period, while hedging the strike price against market prices will ensure that these revenues for the MYPD6 actually materialize. So in terms of the vesting contracts themselves, what we are proposing is that they operate as a two-sided financial adjustment mechanism, ensuring that when market prices fall below the strike price, ESCOM revenues will then be cushioned in the scenario. And then when market prices exceed the strike price, excess returns will then be partially offset. To ensure alignment with both the current regulatory conditions and future market development, we actually then propose a two-stage approach in setting the strike price. During stage one is what we would then call a transitional strike price, which is MYPD6 aligned. And the strike price will then be determined with reference to ESCOM's approved revenue under the MYPD6. So under this scenario or stage one, the strike price actually reflects an allocation of the approved revenues in line with the production plan, which has already been approved. This approach then ensures that there will be continuity with the existing regulatory decisions and provides that revenue stability during the early stage market development. And then on the second stage, Chairperson, we call it the end state strike price, which will be more aligned with market conditions based on long-run marginal cost, which would then be representing the cost of sustaining and investing in generation capacity in a competitive environment. I'm nearing the end, Chairperson. Apologies for taking too long. The framework is explicitly transitional in its purpose, Chairperson. We always want to make that clear that its purpose is not to replace the wholesale electricity market, but to ensure that the transition to competitive price formation occurs in a controlled and credible manner without allowing ESCOM to exploit its structural dominance. In future, Chairperson, as these vesting contracts then decline and market competition strengthens, we perceive that market prices will increasingly determine these generator revenues as opposed to regulated. So the strike price, Chairperson, will actually then transition in a long term. It will transition into a monitoring benchmark, and NESA's role will then also then evolve towards more of a market surveillance and competition oversight while allowing the market to take place, Chairperson. Finally, Chairperson, the consultation paper in its current form, it actually then poses questions to stakeholders which are aimed at engaging on the most practical ways to achieve the objectives as set out by the amended Electricity Regulation Act. And then with that said, Chairperson, I would like to point the members to the recommendations on page 7 of 86 of the submission, which reads as follows. The Electricity Subcommittee is requested to approve the consultation paper on ESCOM's generator power purchase agreement and vesting contract attached as Annexure A. Thank you, Chairperson. And that Victor Geni will then take us through Annexure B, which deals with the wholesale market. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Chabalala. Moving on to Annexure B, Chairperson, the purpose of the wholesale electricity price tariff is to establish a transparent and regulated wholesale price structure, which enables the effective operation of the future wholesale price market and ensure recovery of the regulated and unavoidable system costs. And when we talk about the regulated and or unavoidable system cost under the introduction, we are also listing them as transmission service, capacity requirement, legacy contracts obligations, and subsidies, Chairperson. And these costs are to be recovered for fairly from all the market participants. And then lastly, in terms of the purpose, is to provide a clear and consistent interface between the regulated components and the emerging market based elements. Chairperson, in terms of the legal basis for and the regulatory basis for the wholesale tariff market, we are basing this on the Section 14, 14D, which state that the energy regulator may make any license subject to condition relating to the setting and approval of prices and charges. And under paragraph 3.2, Chairperson, we're indicating that the charges to reflect the wholesale tariff are required to be in place for preparation of the SAWEM implementation. And moving on, Chairperson, in terms of the applicability, we are indicating that this methodology under Section 5 will be applicable to the determination of the wholesale tariff, and it will be applicable during the MYPD6 period and until NERSA develop or put in place a new methodology. And then in terms of the market structure, Chairperson, I will not go through the market structure. Is covered under Section 6 of the consultation paper. And there is also a section that deals with the relationship between the wholesale tariff and the retail tariff, where we are indicating that the wholesale tariff will include costs that are related to the market, and the retail tariff will then include the wholesale tariff to it. And then moving on, Chairperson, to the section that deals with the structure of the wholesale tariff, which is Section 11. I will not really get into the details of the structure, Chairperson. There is a structure that is tabled together with the example that we have provided under table 1, the example of the wholesale tariff calculations. And then moving on, there is lastly, Chairperson, without getting into the list of the cost that makes up the wholesale tariff, there is a section that deals with the alternative to the wholesale tariff, which is the last section to this consultation paper, Chairperson, that instead of having one bundled wholesale tariff, we are also putting out to the public that there is also an alternative to consider, which is a transmission tariff and a retail vesting contract. And the transmission tariff under Section 15.3, Chairperson, it has its own makeup, which is network use of system, the losses, system operation cost, ancillary services, and the possible capacity-related cost. And then lastly, the vesting the retail vesting contract is a contract-based energy pricing, Chairperson. Chairperson, Mr. Chabalala has already read to you the recommendations, and those are the recommendations that we requesting the committee to approve. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chabalala and Mr. Ntageng. So at this stage, I'm then going to call upon the members of the regulator if they've got any questions or points of enhancement. Yes, starting with Madam Maseti.
Thank you, Chairperson, for the opportunity, and thank you to the team for the introduction of these two very substantive issues, complex issues, not so simple the way that we are trying to approach them. Firstly, I would like to indicate that I am not support of these critical and complex issues that the industry is grappling with and which matters are going to have significant impact on the industry, that we as the regulator combine them and consolidate them. Irrespective of the fact that there might be maybe some related issues to it, but not so critically dependent on each other. So from that perspective, I do not believe that we are supposed to present them and deal with them in the manner that we are dealing with them. So firstly, it is the approach issue. I do not agree with that approach issue. We are going to attract very heavy criticism, just like we have recently attracted criticism on the trading rules, that we have done so well with the industry, and all of a sudden, before bringing them to the ELS, then there were some substantive changes that were made after the public hearing, and then they were sent out after the public hearing before coming to the ELS. And then NERSA was heavily criticized. And our reputation is at stake because individuals decide after a public hearing to now take out or include substantive changes, and they don't bring it to the subcommittee. So I'm worried about that approach, first of all. And then the second thing that I would like to mention is that we should have at least have an appreciation of the urgency, the timing of each of these two issues, and the chronology of developing these instruments. So if I may ask, at what point is the wholesale pricing required and critical at SAWEM? At what point is this wholesale pricing methodology critical? Why are we putting our energies and efforts on it at this point in time? And I'm asking this because if one understands how this whole thing is going to work, do we really need to put the resources at this point in time instead of just testing the market in a different way by now coming up with this methodology on the wholesale pricing? And look, for instance, the mentioning of the transmission tariff as we are discussing the methodology, yet we don't have that transmission tariff. What we have are the transmission rules, cost recovery rules that were developed by the department that Mr. Shozi is heading. What was needed in terms of the roadmap was to complete that picture by coming up with the cost recovery mechanism, meaning that the tariff methodology itself for the tariff, for the transmission tariffs. To date, we still do not have that so-called, and which you have mentioned, the transmission tariff methodology. It is not here. How do you develop a document that you say it will also depend, it will take into account the transmission tariff, yet we don't even have? Yet that work had already started, the work on the transmission cost recovery methodology or mechanism. Why is it not here at least? Because I would have thought if you're bringing something that depends on it, you should have it here so that we can compare that with what you are proposing, how those two are going to work. But it is not yet here. And in fact, that one is much more urgent in terms of timing. Why so? Because of the independent transmission projects. And we have looked into the regulations and the rules pertaining to that. But now to complete the picture is for NERSA to come up with the transmission cost recovery methodology, which we are not doing. we go to other things that are not so urgent. So there is the issue of not understanding the timing of these things and when we're supposed to actually intervene. For me, it is a problem because if one looks at what was requested by this subcommittee and the energy regulator in terms of the roadmap, of which roadmap was presented to the committee as well as the ER, it states clearly what are the things that are needed, what is the time frame for each of those things. And that was actually done because it was requested. My apologies, it was requested. Now that has to do with the wholesale pricing methodology. I'm very worried about that because if we can actually take out a document that is not well crafted, like this one, take it out to the industry, that will have serious implications, even on investment and also indenting NERSA's image in terms of whether we are capable of doing what is expected of us in terms of the Act. From that perspective and the risk that we are likely to face, I am worried about even considering it. In fact, I think we're only scratching the surface because you can see that even the presenters themselves, they don't even touch on the technical issues of the cost of the formula. They're uncomfortable. Mr. Ntakeni is uncomfortable to even touch on the issues of cost here. Yet they want us to engage with this document and have to touch on the issue of the cost in the way that they've looked at it, as well as the impact of this and how the industries are likely to receive this, because we're doing it for them and actually making sure that we are not going to be seen to be stifling investment. But they are uncomfortable. They're not touching on that. That for me is a problem. They're not engaging on that. They're just scratching the surface. That for me, I'm not comfortable. I have no confidence at all. And in fact, looking at what is presented before us, that takes care of the wholesale pricing methodology. Coming to the vesting contracts, firstly, I would like to find out what is the duration of the vesting contracts that we're looking at so that we can have an appreciation of the time, the impact this will have on the market. Because we do know that other independent entities that are going to operate or participate at SAWEM, they're very much concerned about these vesting contracts. This is one issue that is going to cause competition related aspects. Is likely to cause issues of predatory pricing, where some of the fixed cost and the others are likely to be put into these vesting contracts. And what will then happen is that you are likely to see that the energy costs are substantially and artificially depressed or suppressed, such that others might not be able to compete fairly there due to the vesting contracts. I'm articulating this deliberately so that we can all understand the impact and the importance of getting the vesting contracts properly. So the duration of it will even worsen the likely situation that might happen. So I would like to find out what duration, because you must indicate to NERSA that duration. The duration is linked to the likelihood or to the potential adverse impact that is likely to happen. So those two are important, the impact. And looking at this framework framework, I would like also to find out to what extent I know that NICOM actually also had a framework on the vesting contracts, and you participated, NICOM, and those were just at a high level. They did not impose that on us, but to say that the thinking, because markets are not the same, what is happening in the EU, which they're still grappling with the issue of contracts for differences. So, which we call in South Africa the vesting contract. It's a contentious issue, and how you're going to deal with it and disperse the money and all of that is going to be is not simple. So, so I want to also understand from our side, we had a very good report, seminal work that was done, I think, from the division, and it was presented by Charles. It indicates the performance of different power plants. It indicates some costs in relation to those. It gives an indication of what we will call the sort of, I will say, average production cost for Eskom. To what extent did we take that into consideration, especially when you're doing this kind of work here? Because it will help us to deal with the inherent risk that we are likely to see when costs are loaded into the vesting contracts. So for me, if I can be clarified on those issues before I really engage further with this work, I would like to understand that, including the rationale on this approach of consolidating these two issues. In terms of the purpose and recommendations, can we deal with this properly? And I think RSU can also assist here, because the way that we are combining things here, it also confuses what we are supposed to approve at this stage. We are saying that we approve the consultation paper. Are we supposed to not note the consultation paper, then approve the publication of that consultation paper? Those are two different things, and that's how we've been doing it, and also in other divisions for standardization. Are we noting the consultation paper and then approve the publication for both of these? Because one cannot be, this cannot be annexures. I don't know what's going on. Yeah. So on both of them, because when you go to table 1 on the delegation matrix, what has been quoted there is the guidelines, or at least the methodology, that the methodology are approved by the subcommittee. But this is different. These are consultation papers. So I just want to understand. The first one is different, number 8. Then you also have 8.1. So if we can just clarify what exactly this means. Maybe RSU can also clarify this, and also that issue of standardization. Lastly, Chair, I've got on paragraph 4.4. Yeah, no, I think I've dealt with it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Maseti. And now I call upon Mr. Mkhize.
Thank you, Chairperson. Acknowledging that these are complex matters, I would like to thank the team, the presenters, for work done thus far. It is also my understanding that we note the consultation paper or discussion documents, and then approve their publication, unless otherwise advised by RSU. I note the issues that have been raised. I don't want to repeat them. You'll appreciate colleagues that have always been harping on this whole issue of a portfolio or roadmap when dealing with these matters. I will start off by saying that I note, for example, you talk of you talk of instruments, and then the question, the various instruments that are required, and then the question is, where are these instruments and how are they sequenced? And if you can just have a portfolio of these, it would greatly assist. And then we're able to see what must be done first and how the other links to the next. And whenever you're presenting one, you just keep us in the loop as to where we are with each and every one of them, so that we can make a progress that is orderly from our side, and ensure that we actually also are able to see as to where we need to accelerate and where can we put more resources, and when can we have these being in a state of being implementable. Please just assist with that, especially when it comes to the background. Then on the, I'll just talk just briefly on the sorry, by the way, that one talks to 2.3. You do allude to the existence of this enabling instrument, which makes some kind of a portfolio. And then on the background, you would have to talk to that. And then on page 19, I note that the question that you are posing in terms of the stakeholder question 1, if you may include maybe a question that asks if there are any other alternative mechanisms that can be used to appropriately incentivize performance. Because if I look at all these others, you do allude to any alternative mechanism. So if you may just assist in including that. And then when it comes to the definition of person, if you can just refine that by including, to say instead of real, to put the natural person, it's natural or legal person. And then on page 20, under 4.3.2, I see that you are saying utilization payment is equal to utilization payment. I think you delete one of the utilization payments there so that it can be correct. And when it comes to the EPP, the definition, I think it's page 65 of 86. If you may just say the properly cite the Electricity Regulation Act, and then the electricity pricing policy is not of the department. It is administered by the department, DE, because all policies, national policies of the Republic. If you can just include that. And then I would also like to understand from your side as to when you're talking of the percentages when it comes to these vesting contracts, are you going to this? If I look at you putting the 60% there, you go down. In terms of the transition, are we going to have reopeners to relook at these percentages and the timelines associated with them? If you may just help to explain to me, because I don't think we should craft this in a manner that locks us in a position that we may find ourselves stuck in and not be able to change in line with the speed and other modalities of the transition. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mkize. And now I'm going to call upon Advocate Sithole.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thanks to the presenters on these complex issues, which are new to some of us. Chairperson, I just want to get one clarity which relates to ancillary services on page 19, part 2, I think it's 4.1. And the point of clarity is whether scheduling, systems control, and dispatch services are not part of the ancillary services, because I don't see them under under that 4.1, and I thought that these are some of the services that needs to be procured by the systems operator. And if they are covered in a different form in paragraph 4.1, maybe the team can just guide which one of those covers that particular point. And if they are to be excluded or they are excluded in the list, if that can be explained, because my understanding was that these are normally deemed to be part of the ancillary services. And if my understanding is not correct, I'll appreciate details from the team to really clarify that for me. And I think linked to that, there's an issue of a black start capability. Maybe for me, it's something that is new. If they can also explain that, I'll appreciate it. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Advocate Sitole. And so now I'm going to ask the team to respond, and if they can respond in the order in which the points were raised by the members. Over to you, team.
Thank you, Chairperson. Yeah, I will ask the team to start, and we will substantiate where it's needed. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Mr. Matebula. I will start, and then my colleague Tabo will come in. In terms of the approach that Ms. Masites indicated to have a concern as to why we bring in this together, the vesting contracts and the wholesale contracts. I will be assisted, but our view is that these two goes together, the wholesale price and the vesting contracts. They are interlinked, they are interdependent, hence they need to be considered concurrently. And that is why we have considered that instead of bringing them one by one, we then give them, bring them together. And with regard to at what point is this required? From where we're sitting, which we actually looking at this as long overdue. There was a time where it should have been done in April, but indication, I just forgot the paragraph. There's a paragraph. There's an indication that the market is envisaged to come into place around July. So from our side, we see this as long overdue, and these instruments are needed for the functionality of the market. Even July is too close when we look at the process that we go into to go through. The timelines might keep on being extended until we finalize these instruments, which are important in terms of the market. And then in terms of the transmission tariff, why are we bringing in the transmission tariff while there are other processes that are still underway? And also that the transmission tariff has not been yet developed, and also the methodology. It's an alternative that we are bringing, that we are requesting the stakeholders to add their view on it. So it is not that we are recommending it as a way, but it is an alternative based on the research that we have done that can be considered. And then in terms of the technical cost, the cost that we had not get into details, of course, it was really because we needed to give members enough time to engage with the documents. I mean, for myself, I thought it has been, we have sit long in terms of presenting the documents, and hence that's why I did not really get into the details of those technicalities. But if needed, we can get and stretch out each cost line item. Well, in terms of whether we are noting or approving, I think the RSU will guide, but we have depended on the table that we have attached, which talks about the approval of the consultation paper, but the RSU can guide on that. If I can ask Ntate Chabalala to come in on the question relating to the vesting contracts. Thanks.
Thank you, Ntate Kenny. I think the first question that I will respond to deals with the issue around what is the duration of the vesting contract, so we can have an appreciation of the impact it's going to have on the market. Maybe to answer that briefly is to say that the consultation paper does not specifically prescribe a fixed duration. What it does is that the vesting contracts are designed or meant to be a transitional instrument. And what we mean by that is to say that how soon they fall off should then be linked to the maturity. Particularly in the consultation paper, we speak to two considerations. The first consideration speaks to volumes, while the second consideration speaks to sunset or the falling off of these vesting contracts. So essentially, in terms of the volumes consideration, we are saying that at inception, and this also is a question posed to stakeholders because the various considerations comes with their own benefits and sort of drawbacks. So we have identified 4 sort of approaches to say that from the onset, how much of a percentage of Eskom's volumes should be hedged. We start from 100%, 80, 70, and 60, etc. So all that speaks to is to say that from the onset, how much of Eskom's capacity should be covered under these hedging contracts. That's an important sort of starting point because it then sort of dictates the trajectory in terms of how quick we would want the market to get liquid. And then the second such consideration around sunset specifically is to say that initially we had identified to say that non-Eskom capacity should be used as a yardstick in terms of how soon or how much of these vesting contracts or these vested volumes would need to fall off. But then having engaged with certain other stakeholders, it became clear that using Eskom's non-capacity in isolation is not such a good idea. As a result, we've considered other items such as or other issues market related to say that the liquidity of the market itself will also then form part of the decision in terms of how soon these vesting contracts should fall off. The second issue that I would like to touch on realizes is the issue raised around fixed cost, which would then be embedded in these vesting contracts and the fear or discomfort of stakeholders around the impact that those are going to have. And I think in response to that, I think by design, in relying on exactly what the ERA is saying, it actually touches on 3 aspects, and that's how we've sort of tried to formulate this consultation paper. The first aspect is actually speaking to capacity costs, whereas the second aspect is speaking to auxiliary services costs. That's where actually the fixed costs are actually sitting. But then separate to that, you will remember, Chairperson, that I've mentioned that the third step in this consultation paper for vesting contracts, we had identified specifically to say that we have developed a framework in terms of determining the offer price. What the offer price speaks to is what the Eskom generators would then rely on to sort of bid into the market. And the concept that it follows that framework, particularly to determine the offer price, is linked to the short-run marginal cost. which is what competitive bidders would essentially then rely on to bid into the market. So that element of fixed cost then step outside of the vesting contract specifically, but would then lie with auxiliary services and the capacity cost contracts. And then the other question, Chairperson, that I would want to respond to is to say that there was a report that was presented by Charles, which indicates average production cost, which I do believe will come in handy in the conclusion of this paper, specifically in finalizing the approach. But I believe Charles has said in various of our meetings, if you'd like to speak to that, I believe he can be afforded that opportunity to sort of speak to that, Chairperson. The last question, Chairperson, that I'm going to respond to, I hope I'm not wrong in saying it's the last one. We note your enhancement request where we were saying that utilization payments were repeated. The paper will be enhanced accordingly. Furthermore, Chairperson, there was an enhancement request to say that perhaps as part of that stakeholder question, we should be enhancing it to include that stakeholders should maybe identify if there could be any other potential mechanisms that could incentivize performance. That enhancement will also then be effected, Chairperson. The next question I'm going to respond to, Chairperson, speaks to the transition around reopeners on volumes. And it's a valid point being raised to say that we do not want to lock ourselves in a position whereby we will end up not being able to react timeously enough. And Chairperson, I think that's why we were quite specific. Unfortunately, I cannot refer you to the specific section, but we identified sort of specific circumstances that would have to be adhered to in order to allow for these reopeners. And all we are saying is that we don't want to be stuck in a position whereby if circumstances, one particular example that I could use right now, we know that currently the oil prices or the oil industry is experiencing a huge shock due to the war in Iran, etc., Chairperson. So if such actually then end up permeating into the South African industry, we are saying that such should allow us to then relook into some of the policy directives that we would have chosen. But specifically for the volumes, I had already spoken to it to say that volumes would not be particularly methodic in terms of how they would then be reduced, but they would rather be looking at the reform of the industry itself. One such aspect being non-Eskom generation that is participating. Secondly, Chairperson, we indicated that the market liquidity in terms of who are the role players in the market. So it will be a sort of a mixture or a conjunction of various elements, Chairperson, not structured. Lastly, Chairperson, there was an issue raised around ancillary services. And I think in response to that question, Chairperson, all I could say is that perhaps we might need to expand the definition or the coverage in terms of the issues or items that are covered under ancillary services. That enhancement is noted, Chairperson. It will be undertaken. I believe this is the last question I'm responding to, Chairperson, on the issue around Black Start capability. Chairperson, essentially, without being too technical, I'm not an engineer, but you do find there are those plants, Chairperson, that require initial electricity in order for it to start contributing to the grid. So the Black Start units actually do not have this capability of not requiring that initial electricity. If I'm allowed, can I please just leave it there, Chairperson? Thank you. I hope I've covered the question sufficiently. Thank you very much.
Chair, I'm not sure if I can add before Ms. Masetti comes in, maybe.
Yes, you can come in before Madam Masetti. Then yes.
All right. Yeah, Chair. So I wanted to indicate that we brought this two document, which is the vesting contract framework or methodology, and as well as the pricing methodology, as two separate documents, which the subcommittee can make a decision on any of them, either to allow them to be published or not. And obviously then we get guided on what needs to be done if the committee is not comfortable to have this document consulted on. However, Chair, I must indicate that there will be an application for NERSA to approve vesting contracts that will come from the market operator through the central purchasing agency. And Chair, this document that we wanted to consult on was meant to set the tone and serve as a guideline on how we are going to handle those vesting contracts as and when they are brought to us, Chair. So that is the one part on the reason why we were developing this document, and we wanted to consult on it and have it ready before we receive the first application for the regulator to approve the first vesting contract. And Chair, the second issue that probably wanted to touch on it was the issue of the ancillary services, which talks to scheduling. Yeah, those activities are embedded in the system operator activities, so they are not considered ancillary services by definition. I think Tavo spoke to the Black Start capability as was requested. And Chair, secondly, it's the pricing methodology framework that, or the methodology that we wanted to consult on. Chair, if you look at the Annexure B itself, under paragraph 2.4, if I'm not mistaken, I'm just quickly going back to it. We specifically, I think, indicated on what is the need to have this framework. And I think if you read 2.7, we're saying it's intended to be implemented at the commencement of the SAWEM, covering all regulated and market-related charges required during the transition period and beyond. And therefore, this document will serve as a basis on which wholesale price rules will be developed. So, Chair, I think if the consultations papers themselves are not ready to be published or to be consulted on, I think we can be guided on what is lacking in the document themselves, so that we can go and enhance on those, so that we can then get the approval. But we are of the view that these two documents, they remain crucial to be enablers for the regulator when dealing with these two issues, one being the wholesale price for those activities that we indicated, and then two, the approval of the vesting contracts as will be expected in moving into the wholesale market. I see Ms. Magubane also has a hand, Chair. I would ask that she comes in and then we can afford the members for follow-up.
All right, thank you. Yes, may I ask Madam Magubane to come in, and then I'll then recognize Madam Maseti.
Thank you, Chairperson, and good morning to you and members. I just wanted to add on the part of ancillary services to just indicate that probably it would be needed to make reference to ancillary services as they are defined in the codes, and Black Start capability in particular is a requirement that's been added to the code to ensure that the Black Start capability for the network is sufficient. As the network is changing and we're introducing more renewables, it became necessary to specify that Black Start capability be a capability that different plants are able to have, so that the network can be supported, and that's really to assist the network to be re-energized should there be a blackout. And so these have typically been 2 or 3 facilities within the network at strategic parts, but with the changing sort of energy mix, Black Start capability has been extended to ensure that all plants or various plants are able to provide that capability. I just wanted to enhance on that response, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thanks, Madam Magubane. And now going to call upon Madam Maseti.
Thank you, Chairperson, for the opportunity. Chairperson, I think as indicated, well, let me just start off with the issue of the ancillary services. I think it is important to provide the context, because in most cases, we tend to duplicate these things. This issue of ancillary services and the scheduling, the way in which we are going to deal with them here, or we're dealing with them here, it must be different from how we touched on these things in the what we call the rules, for instance, the cost recovery rules, the transmission cost recovery rules, for instance, because these issues are dealt with there as part of the transmission. Now, when we come here, the context is not put properly. And what we often criticized on is that NERSA, you tend to deal with things that are dealt with elsewhere. And in that way, you duplicate. So in this case, we have dealt with the issue of the scheduling. And also, yes, there will be issues of cost and stuff like that. As I say, in the transmission cost recovery rules that were brought to us by the division under the leadership of Monthly, Mr. Shozi, they have already dealt with those issues. Now, there is no clarity as to the context and the rationale or the approach of trying to bring them in these 2 documents that we are talking about, or let me say the wholesale pricing methodology, so that we can avoid undue duplication. That's the first thing, and for me, it is quite critical. So we must at least outline even that context on that issue of ancillary services and the scheduling. Then I would like to come to the second issue that again worries me, which I mentioned, but it is not clarified. The issue of the risk. The issue of the risk when it comes to vesting contract is not dealt with. And I'm talking about risk for generators, for instance. And there are also the aggregators that are participants in the SAWE. So if they are locked into low prices, And I had called that, if for the benefit of others, I had called that predatory pricing. So if they are locked into that, that would obviously result in stifling of investment. And also even the parties that are participating at SAWEM might actually exit if they feel that the market in South Africa is not working for them. So that is a critical investment risk associated with the vesting contract. That risk has not been dealt with here. Even the questions to deal with that, to say that if we take this approach, how do we deal with that issue? For instance, of locking into, low prices, or even missing out or missing these high prices that are going to maybe take place. And then there's also a consumer risk, for instance, that we need to take care of in terms of the prices themselves. So the volume risk, the low price risk, and the periods of the negative prices that we need to take care of and asking ourselves. I am just touching on this, but I am also saying we cannot, because there's nowhere else that we are going to articulate the framework, because even if we deal with the methodology, we do talk about the duration of that methodology, or for how long this methodology is going to be in place and be used. We do touch on that. So the market is waiting for this regulator that is coming up with this framework to also touch on how long are we going to survive or have this kind of a framework. It is fair. They need to know for how long are we going to be subjected, and as other independent generators that are participating at SAWEM, are we supposed to endure this kind of protection that maybe is given to the other party through the vesting contracts? It is important that we talk to that duration. We will not just give it out there. In fact, what you could have done is to even make proposals with regards to the duration. In that way, you will have to appreciate the impact of the risk that you would have identified, and also try to see how you can mitigate those risks through the very same work that you are proposing. I don't think that I'm raising things that the regulator should not think about. And I'm saying these things are not here, and it is therefore not good enough to can have this kind of a document going out when we're missing on this market-related risk, price-related risk, volume-related risk, even consumers that are going to be subjected to this, the investment risk that we are going to see. These are not light things, but are things that we need to think hard about them when we come up with a document that we can take out. So for me, it is those things that as we transition to regulation, and knowing that the market will now determine prices in a competitive market, we must make sure that these things are dealt with. Then if I were to then move away from this, I think there's a number of this risk that we really need to think about, even when we talk about this balancing and so forth, and the financing risk that we need to think about. And all of those things have not been dealt with in this document. The other thing that I am saying it is not good is that the sequencing that we are coming up with and these interdependencies, we are not doing them right. You are now taking this vesting contract that I've already indicated how complex it is and how it is likely to do the negative of what the country is expecting. and then you combine it with the wholesale pricing methodology. And in that wholesale pricing methodology, you make reference to things that have to do with the transmission tariff. Yet you don't have the transmission tariff methodology before the regulator. Why couldn't you bring that? Especially knowing that the department is moving in that regard, is ahead in that regard. And the IPP office has advanced its work in that regard. But that document is not here. Yet already some good work has been done by the regulator to develop the transmission cost recovery rules. Why is the methodology to determine the actual transmission tariff is not here to complete that work? Knowing that the department, this is the main area, and you know that even this week there was the launch between the DTIC, IDC, and the departments on this very same issue of the transmission, the ITPs, investments there, and the localization and so forth. But the regulator is not reading that space. And the IPP office busy with the project, yet we're coming up with the wholesale pricing. So for me, I don't think that we got the sequencing right, and we can't have the wholesale pricing without that tariff that we are making reference to. That is just wrong. I just want to leave it here, Chairperson, and there is the rationale that is stated here. I don't think that it makes sense at all. It does not bind us. Even if these two were related, we cannot combine them and consolidate them and cause some convolution of issues. We can't do that and have one as an annexure and the other as an annexure. Why can't we deal with one thing? Because on its own, it's an issue that is contested by stakeholders, even the duration of the vesting contracts. Bearing in mind that NERSA is given a mandate, firstly, to approve the framework for the vesting contract. It is in the Act. Secondly, NERSA is required within a period of 5 years to have introduced competition. So yes, there's going to be a transitional risk in this vesting contract that we're dealing with, of which transition risk we are not dealing with, even in these documents. There's a number of risks that I've mentioned. So it has to be a standalone. What we can do is just have them maybe on the same day, so that when we deal with this other one, and then we deal with the other, not to consolidate them. That approach for me is improper, not to consolidate them, because we're causing more problems. They cannot be, one is a subset of the other, or the one we just combine the covering submission, and then they become an annexure. No, we can't do it like that. Let them be standalone things, as things that we've got empowering provisions to deal with them separately in the Act. And in fact, there's a missing link here, which is that transmission one. I would like to stop here, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Maseti. Can I ask the team them to respond on the issues that Madam Maseti has raised?
Yeah, Chair, on my side, I really do not agree that the matters are combined. Really, I believe that
Sorry, apologies, Mr. Machibula. Maybe let me guide the team here, because I want us to deal with these things in the order in which Madam Maseti raised. She started by talking about the ancillary services and the scheduling, and she said that sounds like we are duplicating. Can we start with that?
Yeah, maybe we should take Mr. Mkhize as well, Chairperson, then we can talk to both members.
All right, we can do that, Mr. Mkhize.
Thanks, Chairperson. And thanks, Mr. Matebula, for just giving me let me precede you. I would just like to, maybe before I speak, I put a caveat. You know, I worked for the policy making side for a very long time. And I'm always having this balance between analysis, paralysis, and implementation. You know, I see it as very crucial. You note that in the energy sector, generally, there's this tendency to not really embark on things until pushed at the end to do them. Pardon me for the prelude. You note now that there is a war, this war in Iran, and a lot of things said, but when things subside, everyone goes quiet. And this issue of taking too long to go out to the public to engage on issues and make decisions, it's somehow tends to be an Achilles heel from our side. I'm talking as a sector, and I think that I do not, in terms of the responses received, support that we do have everything. We do have this the portfolio really in place and outlined, understood by us all here, and therefore the need to do that. But I don't think that should necessarily preclude the process of publishing where I'm sitting, so that we can be able to get comments from the public as a first round. But the issues of enhancements that need to be made, and that in the next session, whether we do via a workshop or as a meeting, that we look at this portfolio and how things fit together, and how the resources have been provided with regard to that, and making sure that we are able to meet the timelines, because that becomes like our working Bible, if I can use that, going forward, as particularly as this subcommittee. That will be my emphasis. And I take it that these two documents, you correct me, I see them as two separate documents under one submission for purposes of us addressing them here. And I would say that there are some implicit risks that are put in terms of managing, like that, like why I was talking of the transition and talking of the percentages from my side, wanting us not to also to lock us up into some percentage or timeline, but to indicate that. And I think for me, the most important thing would be to kind of pull out those risks, and then we can even have maybe a section that kind of write it in that format of saying we've got associated risk that we are trying to manage, which include 1, 2, 3, and then we ask questions concerning these risks and how they should be managed, and as far if they are not adequately managed in terms of what we have, just to ask specific questions that are clear cut in terms of risk management as we're moving forward. Because really, if you are moving into something that pertains to the future, you are dealing with risks, and that risk approach should actually feature in the document in a more explicit manner. And I think if we will have that kind of section kind of being included in terms of what risks associated with the vesting contracts, noting also that it doesn't mean that ESCOM as a first mover in inverted commas should not be having some kind of a first mover advantage. Because for me, I think we need a fair, this is more like also striking a fair balance between those ones that have taken the risk upfront and those that will be coming later. And it is important to have that balance, because at the same time, the incumbent should not necessarily be disadvantaged simply because others that are coming later are then being unduly advantaged. Let me leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mkize. So way forward now, I'm going to ask the team to respond once again, but based on the order in which the members raised the issues. And thereafter, we're going to allow the RSU to come in to help us in terms of the recommendations. And then we are going to vote 2 votes because there are 2 issues on the table. So can I start with the team then to respond in the order in which the matters were raised?
Yeah, Chair, I will start, and what I've missed, the team can assist. And as I started, I indicated that we brought before the committee 2 separate documents. One is the vesting contracts, and the other one is the wholesale pricing. And I think in the recommendations, we have indicated that there are 2 approvals that needs to be done. One is for the vesting contract framework, and the other one is for the methodology. And either one can be approved or not approved. Either way, I think we are in the hands of the committee to make that call. But the issue of scheduling and ancillary services, Chair, I must indicate that you see the business of electricity, Chair, it's a chain. There is no ancillary service that a transmission system can provide without the generation plant. So this vesting contract framework that we're talking about, it mainly deals with generation plants. And hence, Chair, the issues of the ancillary services that are provided by generation plants are covered in this document. It's not a duplication, Chair. These activities are the responsibilities of generation plants, but generation plants themselves cannot provide ancillary services without the use of a transmission system. So either way, whenever we are dealing with transmission-related frameworks or dealing with generation frameworks, these particular activities will still have to be listed because both the industry players will have a role to play when it comes to issues of ancillary services, but none can fulfill this without the other. And then there were mentions of risks. If you were to read this consultation paper, Chair, starting with the part that talks about principles.
Chairperson, through you.
Yes, Madam Maseti.
I think you must call your team to order. And it's not the first time. I think that attitude that Mr. Matebula is displaying here is not proper. And you must be very careful because he's talking to the members of the regulator. And we are taking decisions. And when we ask questions of clarity. He must not answer in a manner that is condescending. He must answer the question properly because he did not even answer my question. I did not say that it should not form part of this document. I said the context. I made mention of the context. And I said we must avoid issues of duplication. And I said in the manner in which it is dealt with in the transmission cost recovery rules, we must make sure that when it appears in the recovery now of the price, it does not result in duplication. So let us then put that context as to why we see it here, making sure that it will not be duplicated the way that it is articulated here. So it has nothing to do with his explanation that you see the business of electricity. This is how it works and the way that he speaks. And that is not the question that I asked. And by displaying that arrogance and attitude, he even missing the actual response that he's supposed to provide. And I'm not clarified.
Thank you, Madam Maseti, for that input. So, Mr. Matebula, I'm sure you've heard what Madam Maseti is saying in terms of how we should phrase the answer to the questions posed. So then over to you, Mr. Matebula.
Chair, I have no further inputs. I will ask the colleagues to assist. Mr. Chabalala is in.
Mr. Chabalala.
Thank you, FTRM. There are a few questions that I hope to sort of clarify. But maybe firstly is the issue overall, Chairperson, to say that in developing, particularly on the vesting contracts, Chairperson, we have dealt with many stakeholders, even though I'm afraid at this point, I don't want to be calling institutions because I don't think we have any formal sort of positions as yet. I think the reason I'm bringing this is to appreciate that even the team sort of recognizes and acknowledges the complexities that we are faced with in these papers that we are dealing with. And I say this, Chairperson, because even in the engagement with some of people who regard themselves as, for the lack of a better word, industry experts, they've also identified to say that we do not have all the answers for some of the issues that South Africa, in the South African context, we are dealing with. So we have acknowledged to say that there are a lot of complex issues that we still are yet to deal with. Hence, we are saying it is very important for us to go out to the public and put it to the stakeholders to say that this is what we have identified. Let us engage on the matters. Let us tweak it wherever we can. But the stance of sort of trying to perfect everything internally, it has become quite clear, Chairperson, even with the assistance of our Danish counterparts, they also sort of got to identify the complexities that we are dealing with. I thought I should just get that one out of the window before I deal with the specific issues, Chairperson. The other issue that I wanted to touch on, Chairperson, is particularly on the issue of risk. I was going to respond to it differently until the members sort of clarified towards the end. And I like how it was sort of posed. In this paper, we actually do sort of speak to some of the risks that are sort of embedded in some of the options that we are proposing. However, I liked how it was put to say that some of these risks are there, however, they are implicit. So this could then be solved by having a section whereby we particularly explicitly sort of identify this risk. And just like we've done with the other stakeholder questions, we sort of put it to the stakeholders to assist with those identified risks. I think that enhancement can be done, Chairperson. And then the other issue specifically, and I think ultimately some of these issues that I'm responding to are sort of all tied up somehow to this issue of risk being identified. Another typical example is the issue that came up to say that perhaps, in fact, the explicit question was to say that how long are stakeholders or role players going to be subjected to these vesting contracts, aka the protection that would be then afforded to Eskom. In light of what I spoke to around risks, Chairperson, I want to identify to say, as an example of speaking to these risks being dealt with embeddedly, but not explicitly so. On section 11.4, we speak to say that the strike prices shall be determined for a multi-year control period of 3 to 5 years as determined by NERSA. That period is emphasized to then allow us to sort of gauge the market in terms of, are we achieving the objectives that we have set out to achieve with these instruments that we are putting forward, Chairperson. Over and above that, still demonstrating on that issue, Chairperson, on section 9.1.1, we indicate that as an additional safeguard, vesting arrangements may be subjected to a maximum duration limit. We put an example to say 5 to 8 years, irrespective of structural thresholds. When we are speaking to structural thresholds, it's those issues that I had initially responded to say that some of these mechanisms include the participation of non-Eskom capacity, including the liquidity in the market, etc. So we are saying as an additional safeguard, there should be we are proposing that maximum duration limit, and we are putting it to stakeholders to sort of assist us in terms of what do you think would work best in the South African context, Chairperson. I'll repeat this one last time. Sorry for this repetition, Chairperson, but is to say once again, some of these risks, because they're embedded, I think it would then be quite wise or more transparent if we were to be very explicit in terms of how we would want, how we have identified and how we would want some of those risks to be dealt with. If I could just leave it there for now. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Chabalala. And then Madam Makubane.
Chairperson, I just wanted to come in on just to attempt again to touch on this ancillary service conversation and the cost recovery rules for the independent transmission projects. Just to indicate that the cost recovery rules don't touch on the recovery of costs payable to the independent transmission project, and don't necessarily touch on ancillary service as such. And also to just indicate that as we are looking into the unbundling of tariffs and setting separate tariffs for licensable ancillary services costs sit within the system operator function. And as we sell tariff is really not an aggregation, but a putting together of all of the tariff elements and trying to allocate them to their licensable activity functions. I just wanted to clarify that ancillary services as a cost is not really included in the cost recovery rules, but will find themselves in the different cost elements along licensable activities and appropriately sit within systems operation. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thanks, Madam Makubane. And then Mr. Chokwe.
Chairperson, good morning. Good morning. Allow Mr. Geldad maybe to come first, because I'll be talking about just the process and the delegation metrics in terms of where we are, but allow the Charles to do justice to the matter. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chokwe. Mr. Geldad, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to come in and maybe give some background to the ancillary services and how this fits in. In the past, the ancillary services was provided by generation, Eskom generation, and it was sort of included in the price or that we used for the MYPD, and it was included with the splitting up of the transmission company away from Eskom. It has become now an issue that it needs to be costed. Even in MYPD 6. Some of the costs there for those ancillary services are just given as a sum amount for the ancillary service that has been provided by the Eskom generators. So with the vesting contracts, what is going to happen now, and which we have not been involved with before, is that these services now are going to be costed out, if you like, on a per power station basis. So there's some uncertainty there about how that should be done and what those costs are in terms of how those ancillary services will be provided, and that is, for the Black Start, for the regulation reserve, for providing AGC, all those sort of costs, which in the past have been, almost invisible to the regulator now will have to form part of the transmission tariff. So those the summation of those costs, which will then be part of the ancillary service, which will be, if you like, concentrated or coordinated by the system operator and form part of the transmission tariff. Then where does it fit in with the wholesale tariff? The wholesale tariff really, in my view, is going to be based on the transmission tariff. But the wholesale tariff, the part which really is critical, in my personal view, is that it is the energy part, and that energy part will be determined by what comes out of the vesting contracts and the determination of each component of the vesting contract summated over a year. In terms of the actual dispatch. So I don't know if that maybe provides a bit of clarity. I'm hoping that it does. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Geldart. And now I'm going to call upon Mr. Chok.
Thank you, Chairperson. In terms of the direction matrix, Chairperson, RSU will take some responsibility in the sense that in the development of principles, guidelines, benchmarks, and all others, we have put consultation in just after development. That might have confused colleagues. But the correct section that we are here before the ELS is actually 10.1, which is the request for this committee to approve consultation of the documents. I should indicate that it's true that the members have a point to actually attend to the document itself, but the small problem is that the document is not here for approval. What is here for approval is the process. But it's true that if maybe the document actually can get out of the blocks in terms of maybe the flaws that might be in the document, members may raise those. But the reason why colleagues are here are saying, can you approve this process? Therefore, the section that they've mentioned is the approval of the document. That will happen after consultation has taken place. That's where the approval is going to happen, where some of the important things can be looked at. But I should indicate that indeed, if maybe so many important things are missing, you may not even go for consultation, but colleagues are here to say, can we consult on this? Which actually indicates that there might be so many things that will change after consultation where stakeholders would have actually brought some important things. That's the part that I wanted to indicate, Chairperson. Thanks.
So just to check if I understand you correctly, then if I look at, for instance, the recommendation number 15, it says approve the consultation paper on Eskom's generator power purchase agreements. So is that correct, the way it is phrased in the recommendation?
Chairperson, it is phrased correctly because the colleagues are saying we request the committee to approve that we consult on these documents that are before you. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chobe, for that explanation. So on that note, then we are going to take two votes. The first one is, I'm looking here, is recommendation 15 and 15C, which says approve the consultation paper on Eskom's generator power purchase agreement and vesting contracts are charged as Annex A. If I can see by members.
Chair, apologies for interjection. Let's tweak the recommendation a bit to say approval of the publication of the consultation paper, which speaks to the process, not us approving the document. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, Mr. Mabumba, can you repeat so that I can write it down correctly before I read it? Repeat, please.
Chairperson, the recommendation should seek to approve the publication of the consultation paper, not the public and not the consultation paper itself. We are approving the process, which is the publication.
All right. Thank you. And I see Mr. Mkize's hand is also up.
Yeah, I think I'm partly covered by what Mr. Mabunda said, because all along, and in line with what also Mr. Choge said, we approved the publication of the document for comment. So we can have a situation where we note the document and then we approve the publication like we have always done. So if we can have that two-step process, and we are approving subject to the enhancements that have been conveyed in this meeting, that would be what I think we should do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mkize. So we are now then gonna put the first one to vote. Mr. Mkize, your hand is still up. Mr.
Apologies,
Mkize.
Chair, it's a lingering one because of the.
So,
yeah, but I support the noting subject to the enhancements.
All right, thank you. Let me then read out the recommendation for the first one. Is that we note the consultation paper and also and approve the publication of the consultation paper on ESCOM's generator power purchase agreements and vesting contracts attached as Annexure A, subject to the enhancements that were raised by the members. So if I can ask the members by show of hands if they are in support of that. And I see Madam Sitole, Mr. Mkize, Madam Semane, and myself. Thank you for that. And then we are going to go to the second one. By way of voting again is to note the consultation paper and also to approve the publication of the consultation paper on the wholesale price methodology attached as Annexure B, subject to the enhancements that were raised by the members. And if we can see by show of hands if members are in support. I see Mr. Mkize, Madam Semane, Madam Sitole, and myself. So thank you for that. And on that note, then we are now going to move
Chairperson.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Madam Masetti. Oh, I see Madam Masetti. Yes, first.
Yes, Chairperson, just to note that I abstain, and based on the critical input and the gaps that are in both documents, of which gaps have not been adequately addressed. And I see that when we're doing the decision, you did not take note of that of other members that are not in support. If that can be on record. Thank you, Chair.
Noted, Madam Masetti, and I also see Mr. Pukula. Your hand is also up.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, it was just to record that I abstained from voting on this one. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So we note that Mr. Pukula and Madam Masetti have abstained. Thank you for that. And so on that note, we are now going to move to item number 8, cost of unsafe energy. Mr. Machebu.
Chairperson, thank you. This item, it's for noting. So, Chair, we received the report from NTCSA on this cost of unused energy. And Chair, I would ask that Ms. Ndlovu talks to the issue and share the details with the members for noting, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Matebula, and good morning to the chairperson, the members, colleagues, and the members of the public. Okay, this submission, the cost of unsafe energy, the values updated in 2025, is stemming from the grid code requirement, which states that the COU as an economic parameter used by licenses in planning must be determined using an ESA-approved methodology. So in 2015, ESCOM submitted the cost of unsafe energy methodology, which was approved by the regulator. And in 2022, the ESCOM also submitted a reviewed methodology, which was subsequently approved by the regulator with the approval conditions, namely that ESCOM must update the COU values on an annual basis and also review the methodology or after 3 years. So the first and the second update were submitted in the previous ELS committees. So this one, which is before us in the submission, is the third and the fourth update, which is shown in section 5 of the submission under table 2 and 3. So the next analysis is that the update is in line with the approved methodology. So what we saw on the numbers is that the COUE values both economic and residential rose in 2024, which implies that the cost of not having electricity due to unplanned outages has increased, which is measured by a foregone opportunity to undertake economic production activities as well as the use of electricity-dependent goods by households. So the changes in the COUE were impacted by the economic indicator, which is your GVA, as well as the expenditure on dependent electricity-dependent goods, which is dependent on the disposable income, as well as the consumption of electricity. So moving over, we tried to do an analysis also of the recent data releases, which was not included in the in the third and the fourth update. So based on the recent data that was released, we are expecting the COUE to increase also in 2025, based on the fact that the economic indicators are increasing higher. The increase in economic indicators is higher than the increase in electricity consumption. So moving over, we've noted that ESCOM did update the COU values. However, the update was delayed, and also they didn't do the review as per the approval conditions of the energy regulator. So moving over to section 6.4, we are trying to highlight the implications of not reviewing the methodology and also delaying, which one of them is that ESCOM will be using or outdated COU values in their planning processes. Secondly, which will impact on their compliance when NERSA is doing the distribution and transmission audits, which is done on an annual basis. Also, by not reviewing the methodology, ESCOM/NTSA is missing out on aligning their processes with the developments in the industry. So in line with Oh, okay, sorry. Also in section 6.4, we've tried to provide recommendation of how this implication surrounding the delays and the non-renewal review of the methodology can be managed, rectified, or mitigated in the future. So, Chair, through you, in line with section 14, it is recommended that the ELS note the COU updates that were done in 2025, and also note that the delays on COU values, as well as that the COU methodology was not reviewed as per the ER approval condition. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Madam Lovu. I'm now going to ask the members to come in if you've got questions or points of enhancement. Over to you, members. Yes, Mr. Mkize.
Thank you. And thanks to Madam Lo for the presentation. I just got a few things that I need clarity. I want to think about 2 or 3 things. On paragraph 4.9, I think you must just rephrase it, not to say that the TSA was previously known as the transmission division within ESCOM. Just need to rephrase it. We know it came out of that, but just rephrase that to say exactly what transpired. And then I've just got a clarity that I need here. Does it mean that, because we talk of us evaluating it in paragraph 6.1.5 of evaluating if this cost of unused energy values are updated. In other words, there's no change in formula or any basic input or inclusion of any other factors. It's more like updating the figures based on the established formula. That's my understanding. There hasn't been a revision of the methodology of coming up with this cost of unused energy. If you can just confirm to me that is what actually happened. And I note that on page 19 of 20, the last paragraph, it talks of the overall impact of the cost of load shedding based on the study was estimated the cost of load shedding to be 9 rand 53 per kilowatt. And then you said that they updated this to the revised cost of load shedding of 12 rand 61 cents per kilowatt. That is now the figures. If you may just bold in this, because we have been hit by load shedding, and I think it's an important aspect just to highlight to the reader. Otherwise, I'm happy to note. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Mkize. Then over to you, Madam Lovu, to explain.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Mkize. I note the improvement on the paraphrasing of section 4.9. And moving on to the second question, and yes, I confirm that there was no change in the formula. The methodology is still the same. The only thing that changed was the input, which are the values, but the formula and the methodology remain the same. And with regards to the issue of the cost of load shedding, also I note that it needs to be bolded, and I think I've covered the questions. Thank you, Chair.
All right, Mr. Mkhize, just to check whether you are covered.
I'm covered, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
All right, I see Mr. Bukula, your hand is up.
Thank you, Chairperson. I just wanted to confirm the source of the figures. Is it Nova Economics? Is it if we can just confirm the source of the figures, and the second part around it, that this is the cost of unserved energy for ESCOM customers. It's not cost of unserved energy for the whole country. If you can just confirm those two. Thank you, Chairperson.
Okay, Madam Lovo.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, the source of the cost of load shedding study is, the source, it is Nova Economics. And with regards to the second question, yes, the cost of unserved energy is based on, yes, ESCOM, because the consumption or the sales data is only based on ESCOM, but the overall GVA numbers is for the whole country. Thank you.
Mr. Pukura, just to check if you have been answered.
Yes, I have been answered. I think maybe my next question would really be a follow-up question as to whether Nova Economics was commissioned by ESCOM, or this is just their own study from figures that they obtained in the public domain. Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I stand to be corrected, but I think the one that I'm sure of is the initial one that was commissioned by ESCOM. But as far as the update, I'm not sure if Nova did it independently or it was part of ESCOM's request.
Is there anyone in the team maybe who can help about the subsequent ones? I see Mr. Zungu.
Thanks, Chairperson, and good morning to the members and colleagues and members of the public. I think it is indicated that Nova was commissioned by ESCOM under the heading of economic impact interruptions greater than 3 hours. Using maybe the appropriate reader numbers is on page 19 of 20 on paragraph 2. Thanks.
Thanks, Mr. Zungu. I think then on that note, may I ask that we go to the recommendation which is in paragraph 14. It says it is recommended that the electricity subcommittee notes the COU cost of unserved energy values updated in 2025 and note the delays on the cost of unserved energy updates, and that the COU methodology was not reviewed as per the ER approval conditions. All of this subject to the enhancements that were raised by the members. So if there is support for that, if you can see by a show of hands.
I know I raised my hand to support, but I think once you've counted the votes, I just want to clarify something.
All right, thanks, Mr.
Voting, yeah.
Okay, Mr. Pukula, and then Advocate Sitole, Madam Simane, Mr. Mkhize, Madam Maseti, and myself. So thank you for that. And then let me then go back to Mr. Pukula. He wanted to raise a certain issue.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I see the reference that Mr. Zungu has done that we must go to page 19 of 20, but it doesn't what I was asking, and I think that the previous presenter who said he'll still find out, can she just find out around the update? Because the paragraph that I read here doesn't say that the updates now have been done. I mean, it says the ESCOM commissioned an independent economic study conducted by Novo to estimate the total cost of load shedding. This study utilized methods, but I don't know which study is this one now that ESCOM is referring to. And all I was asking is the figures that we have, are they those that done by Novo? Because in the submission, you also see that this was done in 2023. So if you could just confirm that.
Yes, Chair, I can confirm that it was done by Nova and it was commissioned by ESCOM. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Madam Lobo. Are you answered now, Mr. Bukula?
Yes, I am answered, Chair.
Thank you. So we've now come to the end of the open session with the public. And therefore, let me take this opportunity to thank all members of the public in the various platforms that participated in this meeting. Thank you very much, members of the public. And now I'm going to ask IT to switch off